And now, this is a homily written by Beth Henkel. It was originally given to Heartland UU in December 2012. And he was going to do the homily again here, so I've offered to do it in his stead. I'm glad the offering came before the homily. I'd hate for my failings as a speaker to affect the take. As will be abundantly clear, I'm a piker at giving homilies. However, after years in a lay-led UU congregation, I'm happy to pitch in and share a few thoughts. My hope is to stimulate your thinking. If I've gotten it all wrong, please straighten me out over coffee. My topic is embracing ambivalence. I figure that's relevant to most of us these days, particularly with all the changes we're undergoing in this beloved community. Here's how I see the next few minutes unfolding. We'll start with a look at how each of us develops an understanding of dualism and ambivalence. And we'll look at how psychiatrists and philosophers view the whole concept. Then some thoughts about how modern life is real good at churning up ambivalence, among other feelings. Finally, what's the upside to ambivalence, and what can happen when we embrace it wholeheartedly? Part 1, through the eyes of a child. We sometimes envy children and infants in those carefree years before mortgages and committee assignments. But freshly hatched humans have a lot of work to do. Think about it. Everybody starts out awfully darn cute, but without much of a skill set. Kids have to learn to move around, feed themselves, and use those opposable thumbs that my cats envy so much. But that's all physical. The newly human have a lot of figuring out to do. They do a pretty amazing job of making sense of the world around them, and it's a big step to distinguish between oneself and other people, though some folks never seem to get that straightened out. So human hatchlings are constantly figuring things out, not just learning the names of things, but assigning some sort of meaning to them and making judgments about them. At first, we tend to decide what something is, and then we think we know it. Dogs are scary. My dad is the strongest person on earth. Marshmallows are a perfect food. That's a pretty simplistic way to view things, but it serves a purpose. And it's just the first part of the journey. We're not using all of our RAM yet. Our operating system isn't fully configured. Somewhere along the way, still as young children, we start to understand dualism. The concept comes first, and then maybe the word. We decide that things or people can be one way or another. Cindy is nice. Bobby is mean. Math is hard, but spelling is easy. God is good. Satan has issues. So we learn that things can be one way or the other, and then that they can move from one state to the other, like the banana that was firm and bright yellow at the store, but 3 days later is all spoiled and mushy. My wife freezes it for banana bread. Or the fireflies that light up the jar on your nightstand, but just lie there the next morning. Enter ambivalence. It's a big step to figure out things are a bit more complicated than we thought. Few things are as starkly black and white as we first judged them to be. We become aware of nuance, multidimensionality, and ambivalence. Things get complicated. I love marshmallows, but they have too much sugar and additives. Cindy is nice to me, but mean to Charlie. God is good, but tends to smite those who don't follow the rules. I want to play Mario Grand Theft Auto, but Mom will holler at me if I don't pick up my room. Welcome to the world, kid. Meet anxiety and ambivalence. They'll be our traveling companions for the next 70 or 80 years if you're lucky. We all know the phenomenon, and there are a gazillion terms for it. I'm of two minds about that. He's sitting on the fence, as Graham sang about. She's got cold feet. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I held my nose and voted for Senator Hornswoggle as the Lester of two malevolent idiots. My family was once driving through rural Wisconsin when we spotted a building with two doors. Each had a sign over it. The same guy operated two businesses. One sign said, not the real name here, Peter Erickson, attorney at law. And the other said, Peter Erickson, used cars. And of course, Dan thought, here's a lawyer trying to bolster his reputation. Ambivalence is everywhere in modern life, probably one of its defining characteristics. But it's also in part the purview of philosophers and psychiatrists. Does that make you feel any safer? The Swiss psychiatrist Paul Eugen Bleuler, who died in 1939, did seminal work about ambivalence. He actually came up with the term. That's what Wikipedia says, by the way. We can also thank him for coining such gems as autism and schizophrenia. My exhaustive research has turned up the following explanation from Wikipedia. I'll forego the fake German accent, he says. I think it would have been tempting to him. And I'm not going to try. In psychoanalysis, the concept of ambivalence, introduced by Bleuler in 1911, refers to an underlying emotional attitude in which the coexisting contradictory impulses, usually love and hate, derive from a common source and are thus held to be interdependent. Moreover, when the term is used in this psychoanalytic sense, it would not usually be expected that the person embodying ambivalence would actually feel both of the two contradictory emotions as such. With the exception of cases of obsessional neurosis, one or the other of the conflicting sides is usually repressed. Okay. An example he gives us might be the drug user who knows of its destructive effects, but enjoys the pleasurable sensation or thinks he can't function without it. Guess which reality usually wins out? Psychologists also talk about the approach avoidance conflict. There's a lot going on within us whenever we are considering something even moderately complicated, like, say, getting married or starting a business. Breathes there a man with heart so dead that never to himself has said, you know, I think I'm going to go ahead and do this, even though the whole enterprise has a pretty good chance of being a major taffy jerk. Enter cognitive dissonance. There's this cheerful notion of cognitive dissonance, which is defined as the feeling of discomfort when holding two or more conflicting ideas, beliefs, values, or emotional reactions. One that I'm going to go just a little aside. One, we want to be so good to the environment and, all that, but okay, there's plastic. There's plastic everywhere. You feel bad, but you still have to get it now and then, right? That's cognitive dissonance. The answer to such situation is usually to repress one of the conflicting feelings, one of the conflicting thoughts, as Bleuler observes, or feel a little guilty, something like that. To me, to Dan, the answer is simple. This is when we need to draw on humanity's boundless capacity for rationalization. I'll only smoke one. Shoplifting from a big store just tweaks the big corporate devils. I deserve that Ferrari. The mortgage company can wait. So, modern life, ambivalence generator. Clearly, modern life, at least the way most of us seem to live it, is one heck of an ambivalence generator. It's like the flux capacitor. Remember Back to the Future, where Doc Brown's tricked out DeLorean was in that, and no matter what kind of garbage he put in, voila, plenty of juice. With modern life, of course, that input is everything we are having going on and how we feel about it, and the output is ambivalence, manifesting as anxiety, angst, cognitive dissonance, or a vague longing to eat grilled cheese on Wonder Bread. or watch the second season of Tiger King. I diagnosed this ambivalence as resulting from several factors. The pace of life, with overlapping commitments and no respite from being totally connected and available. Remember when you left work for the day and you were done? Unless it was a true emergency and someone from the office called you at home on the landline. The complexity of life, when we juggle multiple jobs and overscheduled activities, facing innumerable decisions. Gee, when I was a kid, the whole family ate at home every evening. Mom cooked. I always had the special. Now we spend a lot of time just deciding which restaurant to visit or which menu item is low sodium, gluten-free, organic, and free range. Also, turbocharging our ambivalence engine is the diversity of our culture. What a shift from the plain, vanilla, gently suburban childhood. Now that diversity has greatly enriched our lives, but we're aware of so many different ways to be and things to do, and so much injustice, so many choices. Finally, consider the endless options open to us. Traditional roles have been blown apart, conflated, and reinvented. I actually think that's a good thing. It must have been easier, though, in a way, when societal expectations, thank you, Dan, told us what to believe, what to do, and how to be. We're all Protestants in this town. I'm a cobbler because that's what my family does. I don't have to worry about finances because I'm a woman. I don't get anything. No, that's not it. All this ambivalence can leave us feeling conflicted, torn, and inadequate. Stress is off the charts for many people, leading only to more problems. Remember the cognitive dissonance part about substance abuse? Fundamentalism. All of this is only aggravated when a rigid belief system collides with reality. Those who are committed to an orthodoxy that dictates their interpretation of the world and their reaction to it face a special set of challenges. We're all there to some extent, bringing along a set of expectations we've picked up from some group we've decided we like. Who should we nominate for poster child of cognitive dissonance? Marjorie Taylor Greene or George Santos? He actually did write that in March of this year. So anyway, at the extreme, we see preachers railing against sin as they define it, only to be exposed as leading double lives, marked by the very activities they denounce so strongly. I say, let him who is without stone cast the first sin. Dealing with it. One workaround, as Bloiler notes, is repressing one of the conflicting elements. This may help us deal with, say, an annoying in-law. We accept rude behavior for the sake of peace in the family. Now, Beth, that's just an arbitrary example. I'm not applying that to your family. Along those lines, let's refer to the contemporary philosopher Harry Frankfurt, who earned street cred some years ago for appearing on The Daily Show. Frankfurt would have us achieve what he calls wholeheartedness by embracing one of the options and not the other. I don't have time to be both a structural engineer and a dolphin trainer, so I'll hang up the wetsuit till the kids move out. But this could mean missing out a lot, denying many things that are important to us. Who wants to live 80 years squelching the desire to throw pots or learn how to speak Romanian? There's got to be another way. For example, redefine the question. Can't I be both a protester and a patriot? I love my country and I want to nudge it back on the right track. Can I maintain a healthy diet and still indulge in the occasional Long's donut? Or allow yourself both options. Enjoy the music of both Mendelssohn and Toad the Wet Sprocket, though perhaps not in the same evening. Be the freewheeling motorcyclist, but only after you mulch the petunias. Embrace ambivalence, he says. My prescription is to go beyond acceptance. Embrace ambivalence. As the ads for IUPUI touted a few years ago, why not both? The upside of ambivalence, to paraphrase Socrates, the unconflicted life is not worth living. Simply put, ambivalence or some sort of conflict or some form of tension that can manifest as cognitive dissonance is essential to what makes us fully human. After all, what is life without the dynamism that produces great art? The driving force in music is the principle of movement and rest, tension and resolution, melodically, harmonically, rhythmically. Think of a scale that goes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and stops there. Leaving it there creates an unbearable sense of anticipation. It's crying out to resolve. Do. You must be suffering because of the faulty pitch in my demonstration, but that's a different matter. Without music, without the movement and rest or tension and resolution is nothing. It's music. You'll find it in elevator music, and you hope the ride isn't more than a couple of floors, in which case you should be taking the stairs anyway. And what great literature or painting would we have without tormented artists to create it? Registering super low on the old conflictometer would be, say, Thomas Kincaid, painter of light. How nice. Norman Rockwell gave us a good supply of whimsy and nostalgia. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but give me a little Jackson Pollock or Picasso or some raw abstract expressionism once in a while. And then theater. How dreary would theater be without a conflicted Hamlet or the rebel without a cause? These characters deal with issues that roil within them and percolate throughout their world. Spice, after all, is the variety of life. So we're conflicted, we're ambivalent at many points throughout our lives. That's part of the human condition, universally and certainly for us in this crazy time and culture. So what to do about it? Being human, we do have options. We can, A, take the safe route, do what seems expected, expedient, or easy, no harm, no foul. B, take a walk on the wild side. Be counterintuitive, reckless, to hell with reason. Or C, acknowledge the duality we're dealing with, and then take the road less traveled. This can take different forms at different times. It may mean deciding to jump out of the airplane after all because you paid for the parachute lesson. Maybe it means taking a new job, even though it pays less and is in a different field than your degree and experience prepared you for. For me, the most recent example is getting up to preach when I'm much more at home listening and nodding and discussing it later. We face these moments throughout our lives, often when we don't expect or welcome them. I say let's embrace them. As that great philosopher Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Put less vividly, give me cognitive dissonance or give me bland, meaningless subsistence. At least give me a bit of horseradish to keep my sandwich honest. That's my recipe for a life worth living. Adjust the seasoning to make it your own. Be a friend of the earth and recognize that your carbon footprint will necessarily be somewhat larger than the villager in Guatemala. Sure, it can seem like you're selling out, but if your principles are leading you toward a medicated condition, think again. Cut yourself some slack. Above all, be imaginative in your approach to life. Be as generous with yourself as you are with others. Allow yourself to live on the breathless edge of ambiguity. That's the font of so much creative tension. The joie de vivre, and the je ne sais quoi. And those are two phrases exhaust my knowledge of French. Aside from terms like beef bourguignon and sauvignon blanc, which, by the way, are never to be served together. I love them both, but I'm inflexible on that point. The people I value most have these delicious incongruities. They found how to be childlike and authentic, embracing life with the eagerness of a young puppy. He piddles on the carpet, but he's so darn cute with those big, dark eyes and floppy ears. Set your moral compass, but allow a few degrees of play. You may not get exactly where you thought you were headed, but the journey is probably worth posting a few photos, and you might pick up some new recipes along the way. So, that's my take on ambivalence. The last 12 or so minutes may have been somewhat interesting to you, or they may have been a colossal waste of time. Probably it's a mixed bag, and that's my point. But I hope you'll think about the notion of ambivalence as undeniably human and a product of modern life. It's the source of a lot of angst, yes, but it's also the very juice that drives creativity and makes life fruitful and exciting. So embrace ambivalence or not. I'm of two minds about it.